Welcome everybody to another episode of the FarmCast. Today we are here in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, next to our Ultimate Sprayer. I'm Troy Randall, Precision Ag Manager, along here with Hayden Fox, a product specialist, and he's going to give us a thorough walk around of the sprayer here today. So Hayden, I'll let you kick it off and start here next to the side.
Yeah, thanks Troy. So yeah, like Troy said, my name's Hayden Fox. I'm a product specialist in Burlington, Colorado for 21st Century Equipment. We've talked about the dual product system on the See & Spray Ultimate a lot since it's came out, and the easiest way to think about this machine is two sprayers on one chassis. So as you can see above me, we have a split solution tank. So this is a 1,600 gallon configuration. Deere offers a 1,000 and a 1,200 gallon configuration as well. Any one of those models that you look at are going to be roughly a 40-60 tank split. So like on this machine in particular, we're 400 gallons and 1,200 gallons on our See & Spray tank versus our broadcast tank.
One question I always get, can you get different tank sizes yet?
Yeah, well, yes, no. The tank split is fixed. You can't decide how big of a tank split you want, but you can get a different overall tank size. So we look here, we've got our front tank, which most commonly is our See & Spray tank, and then our back tank, which is going to be our broadcast tank in a dual application situation. One question we get a lot is, can we just run this as a normal broadcast sprayer? The answer is yes. So when we load both tanks with the same product, if we're doing just a standard broadcast pass, each tank has its own individual solution pump, and there's basically just some valves, and the controllers can adjust the flow of those pumps to meet our overall application rate, but so that both of those tanks get empty at the same time. So in a broadcast situation, you don't have to sit there and turn one pump on, shut the other pump off to make sure that your tank volume empties at the same time out of each tank. So with a dual product system, obviously we've got dual adductors. This is just a standard adductor that you would see on a regular John Deere sprayer, except we're just a little bit smaller, and we've got two of them. Over here at our keypad, so this machine's obviously got the automated solution control on it. We do have quite a few features over on these machines that we don't have yet on the typical John Deere sprayers. So a couple things that we can do. All of our functions for loading are going to be ran right off this keypad. So a couple neat things that these machines can do. So our rinse water, for anybody that's been around a John Deere sprayer before, kind of knows that it's just pretty much a guess on how many gallons of clean rinse water you've got on. The rinse water on this machine is actually metered. So you can see right from the cab how much rinse water you've got on board, whether that be to actually do a rinse or if you need to transfer some water to the rinse tank at the end of the day to finish what you're doing. Which on that note, you can transfer water from the rinse tank to either of your solution tanks. But a couple neat features we've got on See & Spray Ultimate that are exclusive to this machine. So if it's the last load of the day you're mixing, if you need to run your adductor, instead of just running solution from the solution tank to run your adductor, we can use clean water. So what it'll do is it'll open a valve, it'll use clean water to run our adductor, and then pull into the solution tank. That way, if you're wanting to clean the machine out, at the end of the day, you still don't have product built up into your adductor still, and you don't have product in those lines. So pretty nice feature of there, but otherwise, there's just pretty much double everything. I mean, if you're familiar with John Deere, the automated solution control on the sprayers, it's pretty much identical to those other machines. One big question we get asked a lot, well, how much longer does it take to load two tanks versus one? I would say at the end of the day, it doesn't take you that much longer if you're running a broadcast application. Obviously, if you're mixing two different tank mixes, it's going to take quite a while longer to load two different tanks, but we've used, like SurePoint quick draws and some of those load systems really help expedite the process when you're loading two different tank mixes. But in terms of loading these machines, so we've got a few different points that we can load from. So typical 3-inch load valve here that we've got on all of the sprayers. Neat thing with this is we can load tank 1, we can load tank 2, and we can push on to our clean rinse water tank from just this one side port. So just depending on what tank you're wanting to fill, all it takes is a matter of a couple button pushes, then you're loading whichever tank you need to be loading.
So Hayden, one question we get a lot, especially when we're running See & Spray, is how much chemical do we need to load in our See & Spray tank?
Yeah, so that's been a tricky question too. After we make a pass across that field, we'll get a weed pressure map that'll help influence us on making decisions on how much to load for the future. But if there is a case where you do load too much product and you want to recapture that product and clean it, drain it out of the sprayer, on this machine exclusively, there's two 2-inch banjo valves, electronic valves up underneath, one for each tank. So when you get back to the yard at the end of the day, if you want to drain that extra chemical back into a shuttle, you can hook a hose up from there, run that right back into a shuttle, push a button, and then it'll drain everything that's in the tank through the sump back into whatever container or tote you're wanting to put it back into. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got multiple points or multiple options when it comes to loading this sprayer. We talked about the side fill over there just a minute ago. We've also got 2 different front fill valves here. So from our 3-inch valve, all the same functionality as the one on the side. So your rinse tank, tank 1 or tank 2. If we are doing a split tank application or a dual product application and we're trying to run 2 tank mixes or 2 products that are not compatible with each other, we can use this smaller 2-inch valve to load tank 1 exclusively. The whole idea behind having a separate valve for your See and Spray tank, as I just said, is there's no possibility for cross-contamination anywhere in the system. So, but like I said, all the same functionality. You'll notice on this machine, which will be coming for 25 on all machines, but we do have a front display on this machine, which makes loading one of these a lot easier. You can actually see how much product you've got on board, and we can control some of our valves and functions off that keypad as well.
So Hayden, compared to most sprayers, this is pretty clean over here, but as you can see, that is not the case over here. So what does we got going over here on this Ultimate machine?
Yeah, so as we look at the side of the machine, on a conventional sprayer, we would use the sprayer pump if we were gonna pull solution on from a shuttle or from a trailer. On this machine, we have a dedicated pump to pull on. So that's what we're looking at right here. Basically, if you just follow this plumbing back, it's all the plumbing for all the various options we have to load this machine. But as I mentioned, that is our dedicated pull-on pump. So if you're familiar with target fill in the past on John Deere sprayers, we still do have that capability with this machine as well. So if we needed to load 400 gallons, say, from a trailer, using either the front keypad, the side keypad, or the display, I could punch in that I want it to load 400 gallons. Once I hit start, it'll kick that pump on, pull 400 gallons on. As soon as it hits 400 gallons, it'll shut that pump off and close all the valves down. So if you're trying to shoot for a specific volume that you're wanting to use, it's handy to have that feature as well.
So Hayden, since this machine can do See and Spray, how does it work for broadcast?
Yeah, for broadcast, as I mentioned earlier, the one thing that Deere has reiterated is to eliminate the possibility of cross-contamination. And in order to do so, if we look at the back of the machine, this valve right here is one of the first places where tank 1 and tank 2 meet. So if we're running just a straight broadcast pass through the field, that valve, which we call our crossover valve, will be open, and then from there it'll be distributed down to our boom plumbing. So this is really one of the only points on this machine where those 2 tanks will cross. But as we look at this machine, you'll notice, if you're familiar with ExactApply, we've got pretty much the same exact nozzle body as ExactApply does. We just have one more port for the extra plumbing. And then as you can see, if we look above our strainers up here, this is really the heart of See and Spray. So these are our two of our VPUs on this machine. We're running 36 cameras across the boom, and these VPUs are what relay the images and cause the machine to react to what it's seeing.
Hayden, what does VPU stand for?
Yeah, so good question, Troy. So a VPU is a vision processing unit. So we've got a handful of these VPUs across the boom, and then one of the VPUs on the center frame here is what we call our lead VPU, or lead image processing unit. So what that is that's just relaying all of the information that the cameras on the outside of the boom are sending back to the machine.
So Hayden, since this system uses cameras, one thing we have a lot around here is dry conditions and dust. So how does the system react when it sees dust or it cannot actually see those plants out in the field?
Yeah, so there's a few conditions that make this machine go into fallback mode. And when we talk about fallback mode, all that means is it's either gonna broadcast spray or it's not gonna spray at all. So if a few cameras get dusty, say a section right on our center frame here sees too much dust, that section will just broadcast spray, but it won't kick the rest of the boom into fallback mode. The other conditions that will be met for this machine to go into fallback mode is if our boom height is too high. So we have to run our boom between 20 and 46 inches off the ground so that those cameras can stay at a consistent level and see the weeds and do what they're supposed to. But as I mentioned, if it gets too high or if the machine is traveling too fast, the machine will go into fallback mode and just kick either the whole boom or a certain section of nozzles into fallback and broadcast spray, depending on which section of the boom is outside of operating conditions.
Yeah, we've seen that here recently, especially as the corn gets taller, guys are out there still trying to spray when it's a little bit taller conditions. We're getting a lot of fallback codes right now, so it's almost the point where we can't see and spray because that crop is fully canopied. Kind of starting to see that limitation of the system right there. So
yeah, and in terms of dust, like we get asked, is there any, I mean, what do you do for maintenance, or what does it take to clean cameras? Nothing special. You just use like a microfiber rag and wipe the cameras down every once in a while, but very rarely does that have to happen. The other neat feature with this machine, if you come in close, you can see our center frame is slightly different, or is quite a bit different, I should say, than the machines that we've got now. So Deere went back to a suspended center frame. So basically we're hanging off a big bearing at the top, and then we've got airbags and some cylinders that help control that boom sway. Reason for that, we've also got you'll notice an extra valve block if you're familiar with Deere sprayers over there. Reason for that is we've got improved hydraulic flow, and this redesigned center frame helps with improved BoomTrac. As I mentioned, we have to stay within that certain range to get See and Spray to perform.
So Hayden, this boom looks a lot different than what we've seen in the past. It's black instead of green.
Yep.
It's not metallic, so it looks like it's carbon fiber, but due to that, what's one big benefit a lot of our Ultimate customers has seen when it comes to BoomTrac?
Yeah, so when we talk about BoomTrac on See and Spray Ultimate, we have what they call BoomTrac Ultimate. So as Troy mentioned, on See and Spray Ultimate, we've got the carbon fiber boom. We've added 2 more boom height sensors, so we're running 7 boom height sensors total. And then we've added what they call inertial measurement units as well. So even with all the extra plumbing and all the extra camera hardware that we've got on this boom is no heavier than a steel boom is with ExactApply. That's about the exact same weight. But between the carbon fiber boom and the changes and improvements on the center frame, we're able to maintain plus or minus 10 inches at the tips of our booms 90% of the time with BoomTrac on and engaged.
Yeah, that's been one cool thing. And about every person that has one of these or at least demoed one, that's the first question they ask is like, how do I get this boom on my sprayer now?
Yep.
Because it's awesome. Because the BoomTrac Ultimate is awesome. What I've heard from most customers, they want it. And unfortunately, it's only on Ultimate right now. So if you want to utilize it, you have to get an Ultimate machine. But hopefully down the road, we might see some different options there, or some of the features, like I said, trickle down from Ultimate into other machines too. But that's been one very positive note when it comes to Ultimate machines is how good the BoomTrac works.
Yeah, and we've seen some videos. I'm sure you can find them floating around online. But this carbon fiber boom in Deere's testing actually proved to be more durable than what the steel one is now. So Deere's original carbon fiber monotube boom, didn't seem like we had that good of luck with that, but this one, like I said, is just night and day, and that's everybody's favorite thing about this machine is the boom itself.
That one led the way, so that one could walk, so this one could run. So.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So Hayden, how many cameras are on these booms for See and Spray?
Yeah, so on the See and Spray Ultimate, we've got 36 cameras spread across the boom. As you can see, here's our cameras here. As we alluded to earlier, these gray boxes, these are what we call VPUs, vision processing units. This is the brains of the operation right here. Between these cameras and with the VPUs, this machine, as we're running across the field, is looking at about 2,100 square feet per second. So pretty impressive. I mean, it'll pick up weeds literally about the size of your thumbnail at 15 miles an hour. So it's super impressive. But like I said, 36 cameras. When one camera sees a weed, it defaults to automatically turn 3 nozzles on at minimum, depending on how big or small the weed is. So regardless of how small it is, it's always going to turn 3 nozzles on when it sees a weed.
And then from there, how much buffer can we adjust front to back and side to side?
Yeah, so we have a couple settings we'll cover in the display that we adjust for wind speed. So if we've got a heavier wind, we can adjust our spray buffer front and rear and then side to side as well. So by adjusting that spray buffer, we can determine how far before and how far after we want that nozzle to kick on. And then we can adjust width a little bit too to get to decide how many nozzles we want to kick on every time it does see a weed.
So Hayden, with the See and Spray technology, what's some of the numbers we're seeing out there for savings when it comes to utilizing this technology out in the field?
Yeah, so what we've seen at 40 to 60% savings on fallow seems to be kind of right in the sweet spot. That's what we've seen about everybody hitting. Corn, I would say we're anywhere from probably 30 to 50% savings from what we've seen, just depending on the field and the farming practices. But yeah, around that 40 to 50% mark's pretty average, I would say. And then in terms of use cases, we talked a little bit about doing 2 different broadcast passes at the same time, and it was pretty neat. We did that for our own on our Severance test farm this year on our wheat. We ended up variable rating 2 different fertilizer blends at the same time. So the nice thing, having 2 completely different, solution pumps, you can run 2 different variable rate prescriptions at the same time if you wanted to. So you can get super creative with what you actually want this machine to do. As we're sitting in the cab of the See & Spray Ultimate machine here, we just wanted to point out a few different things when we're looking at the display. So if you've ran a John Deere sprayer before, the user experience is going to be pretty much identical. There's no extra buttons or nothing fancy you have to do down here on the armrest. There are quite a few different settings that we can get into down here on the display. Deere created this nice little widget. When we click on this, this pulls up pretty much everything that we need to know when it comes to See & Spray. So it's got all of our information in one spot. We come in here and set our rates, pick our nozzles, pick our products, and then as we mentioned earlier, we can get in and start playing with some of the spray sensitivity settings as well as some of the buffer lengths and buffer widths depending on what we're trying to accomplish and what kind of conditions that we're running in. So the neatest thing that we can do with the See & Spray technology as we're running through the field, we actually do have the capability to pull up any of the 36 cameras that are on the screen, and we can sit there and watch those cameras as we're running through the field. So we can watch it as it identifies weeds, and then we also use that as a tool for when we're trying to get the sprayer dialed in. So we'll pull up to a patch of weeds or an area where there's a few small weeds, and we'll get out and ground truth that to what the machine is seeing. That way we can make sure that we're not getting any misses when we run this machine through the field. But yeah, as I mentioned, as we come back through in here, there's really nothing crazy different between this and just the conventional John Deere sprayer. So the user experience is pretty seamless, and there's not a lot of extra training that needs to be done to introduce this technology onto the farm.
So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the FarmCast. Thanks, Hayden, for giving us a walk around of this Ultimate machine. If you're interested in it or any other See & Spray technologies that John Deere has, or even John Deere sprayers in general, get with Hayden and his team. They can help you out. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.
Yep.